If you want to become successful in the corporate world, one skill that you must master is how to crack a job interview. And that is the reason there are thousands of videos which have been made on this particular topic. There are so many blogs which people have written on this particular topic. In fact, I have also written many blogs on this topic, and in the description below I'm giving link to some of them which you can go through. But when some of you approached me and requested me if I can make a video on this topic, I started thinking. I thought how I can give you something beyond what is already available in these videos and blogs. And that's where I went back to my experience of last more than 25 years, where I would have conducted more than 10,000 interviews sitting on the other side for various positions, for various levels, for various organizations in various geographies. And I thought that how can I assimilate some of the knowledge which is available, which I have picked up while going through this experience. And based on that experience, I have created this video, and this video is going to be in two parts. In part one, I will analyze how you can prepare yourself differently pre-interview, and in part two, I will take you through some of the things that you need to keep in mind while being a part of the interview. So this video is going to be very meaningful. It will be a perspective of the interviewer, somebody who has already conducted more than 10,000 interviews. And that is the reason this knowledge probably would sit on top of the knowledge which is already available, which you would have consumed through various videos and blogs. So that's why you must watch both the parts of this video series and get benefited by it. So let's start the first part of this video, where we are going to analyze what you can do pre-interview, how you can prepare yourself. Now let's try to understand it a little differently. Let's try to understand how this whole process of selection works. Now the process starts when there is a vacancy in any of the corporates. So either it's a new vacancy, new position which has got created, or somebody would have left and that's why this position has fallen vacant, and that's the reason HR has been given the responsibility to fill this position. Now what you have to understand is, from an HR's perspective, it's a job which is to be done. There is a vacancy, there is a position which needs to be filled, and they typically would look at candidates who could be the ideal fit. Now in some organizations, they would directly look at candidates themselves. They will try to source them through various funnels, through job portals, through direct applications, or they would go to some job consultants and try to source CVs through them. So that's their process. That's typically how it works in any organization. So HR has the responsibility to collate all the available people who are ideally suited for that position. And from all the available people, they would typically shortlist some of them who in their view would ideally fit into this particular requirement. And in this process, they may go back and consult the reporting manager also, under whom this position exists. And that's how the first shortlist gets arrived at. So this is the typical process which gets followed in the organization and which you need to understand. So at this juncture, I am assuming that you have already been shortlisted for an interview and you are supposed to appear for that interview. Now, sometimes what happens is the first round of interview or a conversation happens with HR also, and which is a very critical conversation. But what you also need to understand is this is a job which HR has to do. So from their perspective, they would like you to get selected. They would like you to be ideally suited for that position, so that they can forward your CV to the next level, to the reporting manager, to the other people who would conduct the next round of interviews. So you have to take this particular round of interview where you are meeting somebody who is more a favorable person to you. It is in his or her interest to select you and move you to the next level, because HR would never like to keep rejecting candidates. It is in their interest to fill a position faster, and that's why they would typically act with you in a favorable manner. They will support you in this whole process. And that's one thing which you have to understand. So you have to take this particular round of interview with that intention, with that understanding. Now let's move to the next level. Let's try to understand who are the people who typically would interview you. Now one person, very important, who would be the manager, the future manager under whom this position exists. And that interview is going to be the most critical interview, because anybody who is having a position under him or her would like to recruit the best possible person. So that's going to be the most critical interview. What also happens sometimes is you need to probably meet your manager's manager also, or the department head. So that's the next round of interview that could also happen. In certain organizations, there are some indirect reporting managers who also would like to meet you. So that's where you need to have a very clear understanding that what is the process, what is the roadmap that you have to go through, starting with the HR interview, manager interview, manager's manager interview, department head interview, indirect reporting managers interview. You need to understand this whole process in advance. If you are going directly through HR, you need to ask them, you need to understand from them that who are the people who would typically meet you. If you are going through a job consultant, you need to ask them and understand this complete process. This understanding is very important. And the reason I say this is important is because each of these interviewers meet you with a different perspective, with a different mindset, with a very different objective. And in that meeting, you must be seen as fulfilling that objective. So if you are meeting HR, you have to understand that you have a support system. You need to just convince them that they should move you to the next level. If you are meeting the manager under whom this position exists, then that's the most critical interview. You have to really take it in a manner where tomorrow you are going to work under this person, and it's critical for you to convince this person so that he or she feels confident that this person is worth recruiting. If you are meeting manager's manager or department head, there could be two possibilities. Either it could be just a formality where the person just meets you and sees the overall suitability within the department, or this could be even a more critical interview where the department head or manager's manager is judging whether my reportee has selected the right person or not. So this understanding is also required. And if you are meeting an indirect reporting manager, I think these are again more formalities where unless you do something really wrong during the interview or you say something which does not sit with that person, typically they would come and like to see that, okay, we are hiring a decent person. So it's more a process which has to be followed. So that's why I always say that first, you need to understand the complete process, all the people that you are supposed to meet, and then prepare for each of these meetings differently, because they come to this meeting with a different objective, and you must prepare yourself in a manner where you are seen as fulfilling that particular objective. Now, assuming you have understood the whole process of interview, who all you would be meeting, who are those people, and what is their key objective, and you are preparing yourself for that. One more thing that you need to do, which is very important, and which is what I have seen in my experience where people go wrong. Now, people come to interviews with a clear objective of presenting themselves, presenting their capabilities, presenting their achievements, and there is absolutely nothing wrong about it. But what also happens is they sometimes, or even most of the times, they miss this particular aspect where they look at the whole interview process only from their point of view. They ignore the other person's point of view. And this becomes very important, especially in the first round if you are meeting HR, or in the next round where you are meeting the manager under whom this position is there, or the manager's manager or department head. You have to understand the whole purpose because of which this position exists. Why would the organization need this position? Why would they pay a certain amount of money to hire this position, to fill this vacant position in the organization? unless you understand that, you will not be able to build the link between your capabilities and what is required. So it's not just about presenting your capabilities, your achievements. It's also about building that bridge between what you bring to the table and what the organization expects from this position. And this preparation has to happen in advance. This cannot happen on the interview table. And that's where I see a lot of people going wrong, where they come to meet me and they start just presenting themselves. I have done this, I have done that, I worked in this industry, I achieved this. But then I realized that they seriously don't understand why I need this position, why I am willing to pay an X amount of salary for this position. And when I see that this link is missing, it creates a doubt in my mind that whether I'm talking to the right person or not. Because that ability to link your capabilities with the requirement is very crucial, and especially if you are meeting the person under whom this position is there, because he or she would like to understand how this person would come and solve a problem for me. Because I am hiring this person because I have a problem, I have a gap in my hierarchy, in my structure, and this person must come and fill that gap, fill that need which is there. And if you're not able to convince me or convince this person that you're the right person to fill this gap, I would have doubts in my mind. Or if I'm meeting 4 people and out of the 4, one is able to convince me on this particular aspect, I would immediately select that person. So if you want to crack a job interview, this is the most important aspect which you should focus on, which you should prepare in advance. One more thing which is very important for you to understand as an interviewee, that when you are going for an interview, while that is the most important thing for you, but from an interviewer's perspective, he or she is going through his or her normal work day, where there are multiple priorities which he or she has to complete. An interview is just one part of that. So, depending on the time of the day, you may find that the interviewer is in a different frame of mind. Assuming that your interview is happening at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Now, the interviewer would have just finished his or her lunch, or sometimes, he would not have had his lunch or her lunch, and then must be wondering that, okay, let me just complete this interview and then after that I would go for lunch. Or if your interview is happening towards the end of the work day, the interviewer would come with a view that, okay, let me finish this and complete my work day. So depending on the time of the day, the frame of mind in which the interviewer is, a lot would depend on how your whole interview experience actually happens. And let me tell you, you have a right to control this particular aspect of the interview process. And you will ask me how. This is a secret, and which normally I have seen that people don't utilize it. They have a right to decide the time of the interview. Now, in normal course, what happens is that your consultant or your HR would give you a time slot. You have every right to demand a time slot of your liking. And I always tell people that pick the first slot during the day, start of the day. When the interviewer meets you with a very fresh mind, when the conversations are much more meaningful, rather going through the interview during any other time of the day, when the interviewer is running through multiple priorities. At least the chances are that if it is the first thing in his or her schedule of the day, then you will get much more attention. He or she will come with a fresh mind, and you will be also able to present yourself in a much better way. So always use this right that you have, always to whatever extent possible, request the HR or request the consultant that if they can give you the first slot during the day. And I'm telling this to you with my experience, with the way I have seen interviews getting conducted in the corporate world, and this makes a huge difference. So these are some of the things on which you can prepare before you actually go for the interview. And this is very critical. This preparation is extremely critical because all the aspects that I have spoken about, a certain amount of research is required to be done, a certain amount of preparation which is required to be done, and that will help you in giving out your best during the interview process. So you must run through the checklist, the items that you have mentioned in terms of first understanding what is the process that the organization follows while selecting a candidate, who are the people who would meet you during this whole process, what are their roles, what are their intentions, what is the need for this position in the organization, how you can link your expertise with that need, and then finally exercising your right to meet the interviewer at the best possible time. These are some of the very core things which normally we don't talk about, but if you really focus on them, it'll do a lot of good to you while going through the actual interview. So please focus on them. So if you have liked this video, give it a thumbs up, share it with your family and friends. And if you have any questions, any comments, put them in the comment section and I'll answer them. Now I'll meet you in the second part of this video where I'll take you through some of my experiences which are very useful while going through the interview and how you can make best out of those 30-45 minutes or 1 hour time frame that you get with your interviewer. So I'll see you in the next video. Thank you very much.